Hello and welcome to TV Sapienta News Hour. On the news is Oluchi Ojo Bamidele. Starting with the news headlines, where Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has called on businesses operating in the state to adopt flexible work arrangements as a way to alleviate the intense traffic congestion currently affecting Victoria Island and Ikoyi part of the state. French President Emmanuel Macron has called for a suspension of investment in the United States until Donald Trump's brutal and unfounded new tariffs against Europe and the rest of the world are clarified. Nigeria has climbed up to one place, moving to 43rd in the world in the latest FIFA ranking released on Thursday. Now the details of the news. More than 60 support groups under the umbrella of the All Soludo support groups with a combined membership of 120,000 people have officially thrown their weight behind the re-election campaign of Anambra State Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo. The groups held a solidarity rally on Thursday at the International Convention Center in Awka, where they also presented a donation of 30 million naira to support the governor's second-term bid. Speaking at the event, the coordinator of the coalition, Chinedu Wonye, alongside other conveners, reaffirmed their commitment to helping the governor actualize his developmental vision and manifesto for the state. Woye praised Soludo's performance in office, stating that the support for his initial election was well placed and has since been validated by his achievements. In his response, Governor Soludo expressed deep appreciation for the show of support, noting that such a groundswell of endorsement was unprecedented in the history of Anambra State. He added that the upcoming governorship election could mark the first time the state witnesses a truly consensus-driven no vote. The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has revealed a certain case of result fraud, disclosing that only 6 out of 148 A-level results submitted to Bayero University, Kano, for direct entry admissions were genuine. The remaining 142 results were found to be fraudulent. According to JAMB, the discovery was made during its screening process, which aims to ensure that only authentic documents are used for admission into tertiary institutions. The board stressed that a critical role educational institutions must play is in thoroughly verifying admission credentials. JAMB also noted that it had established the Nigerian Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System 2 years ago, following earlier concerns raised by the Bayero University. The university had alerted the board after uncovering that just 6 of the 148 results it received for verification were authentic. In the recent developments, 13 more fake A-level certificates have been identified across various institutions. Those implicated have been handed over to law enforcement agencies for prosecution. JAMB has issued a stern warning to institutions, cautioning that any university or tertiary body that admits candidates with forged certificates will be treated as complicit in the fraud. The federal government has unveiled a strategic plan aimed at revitalizing and boosting cocoa production across all segments of its value chain in response to a concerning decline in output. Speaking at a 2-day stakeholders capacity building and training workshop in Akure, Ondo State, the permanent secretary of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Nura Rimi, described the current state of cocoa production as worrisome. Represented by the Assistant Director of the Commodities and Exports Department, Johnson Akeredolu, Rimi emphasized that cocoa, one of Nigeria's key export commodities, has struggled to remain competitive in the global market. The workshop, which focused on global good agricultural practices and food safety within the cocoa value chain, is part of efforts to improve Nigeria's access to international markets for cocoa and its byproducts. According to Rimi, the initiative aligns with President Bola Tinubu's mandate to promote skills development and capacity building. A total of 120 participants will be trained to adopt international best practices in cocoa production, processing and value addition. He noted that the comprehensive intervention will cover the entire process from the provision of quality cocoa seedlings and supervised planting to nurturing, harvesting, processing, packaging and labeling. The ultimate goal is to ensure Nigeria cocoa products meet the standard required for export, particularly into the European market. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has called on business operating in the state to adopt flexible work arrangements as a way to alleviate the intense traffic congestions currently affecting Victoria Island and Ikoyi. The gridlock, which left many commuters stranded on Wednesday evening, was caused by the ongoing repair work on the Independence Bridge in Bonny Camp, which has been temporarily closed by the Federal Ministry of Works. In a statement shared on X, formerly Twitter, Governor Sanwo-Olu appealed to employers to explore alternative work models such as remote and hybrid systems. He noted that a temporary adjustment in work culture could significantly reduce traffic pressures and enhance public well-being during the period of disruption. While acknowledging that the bridge repairs were long overdue, the governor expressed regret over the hardship faced by residents, offering an apology for the frustration, delays and disruption experienced due to the closure. In Edo State, the Police Service Commission has approved the appointment of CP Monday Abonika as the new Commissioner of Police for Edo State Command. In a statement issued yesterday, the Commission spokesperson Ikechukwu Ane confirmed the new posting. The leadership of the Commission urged Abonika to act swiftly in tackling crime in the state, particularly addressing the recent spate of killings. He was reminded that his handling of arrested suspects linked to these crimes would be a key measure of his success. CP Abonika was also cautioned against sidelining essential police departments in favor of tactical units. Responding, she assured the Commission that he would operate within the framework of the law and rely on guidance from the Inspector General of Police in discharging his duties. Several passengers sustained injuries in the early hours of yesterday following an explosion aboard a large ferry boat, Ibwega Eko, which suddenly caught fire while en route to Victoria Island. The National Inland Waterways Authority's NIWA confirmed the incident, stating that its officials promptly responded to the scene to prevent the fire from spreading further. While the exact cause of the explosion remains unknown, NIWA noted that a thorough investigation is currently underway. The Lagos State Waterways Authorities also confirmed the incident, reporting that 4 passengers sustained minor injuries and are receiving medical treatment. The authority emphasized that all safety measures are still in place and ferry operations continue as scheduled. Authorities have assured the public of their commitment to passenger safety and pledged to uncover the cause of the explosion. Hundreds of stakeholders and party leaders from the North Central geopolitical zone have announced their collective determination to produce Nigeria's next president in the 2027 elections after 65 years of political marginalization. They promise to back President Bola Tinubu's re-election bid only if he is willing to sacrifice the current vice president, Senator Kashim Shettima, and select a running mate from the North Central region. The demand was made by political representatives from 6 states of the North Central Zone, which includes Benue, Kwara, Kogi, Plateau, Niger, Nasarawa, and the Federal Capital Territory (FCT) during a press conference in Abuja yesterday. Leader of the North Central Movement, Professor Ngabu Kiso, addressed the press decrying the region's long-standing political exclusion. He highlighted that the North Central, despite hosting Nigeria's seat of power, has never produced either a president or vice president since the country's independence in 1960. Kiso emphasized that the region has consistently been relegated to the status of second-class citizens, despite its significant contributions to the country. He insisted that if the ruling APC chooses to offer President Tinubu the 2027 election ticket, the coalition demands that his running mate must come from the North Central region. Bauchi State government on Thursday announced a resumption of schools after a month-long Ramadan break. The resumption date was disclosed in a press release issued on Thursday by the Information and Public Relations Officer of the Ministry of Education, Dalaluddin Usman. According to him, the Honorable Commissioner of Education, Dr. Lawal Mohammed Rimin Zayam, wishes to remind parents and guardians that the resumption date for the continuation of the second term is on Sunday, 6th of April, for both day and boarding schools in Bauchi State. He emphasized that education remains a top priority under the leadership of Governor Bala Mohammed, and the Ministry of Education is committed to ensuring the success of all students. Usman also noted that the ministry would soon begin JAMB CBT training for all sponsored JAMB students to help them excel in their exams. It was recalled that the Bauchi State Ministry of Education had earlier closed schools on March 1, 2025 for a 5-week holiday as part of their academic session calendar for this year. The Petroleum Product Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria, Petron, has called on the Minister of State for Petroleum, Henneken Lokbobiri, to conduct an appraisal for the first phase of the Naira for Crude Oil initiative. Petron's spokesperson Joseph Obele said in a statement that the appraisal of the initiative will determine the next steps in the best interest of Nigerians. Adding that as the Naira for crude tenure ends today, the association is cautioning refinery operators to prioritize the importation of high-quality crude oil. He urged the refinery operators to ensure that the crude oil imported meets global standards to guarantee the production of high-quality petroleum products. Obele noted that Petron is optimistic that the recent increase in the price of petroleum is temporary, assuring that the federal government's reform under the Petroleum Industry Act will encourage competition in the downstream sector, noting that competition is a catalyst for the price reduction in any sector. On the foreign scene, at least 30 people have been killed in southern Sudan after an armed youth group briefly overran a northern town in the Ruweng administrative area, local officials confirmed on Thursday. The violence stemmed from a cattle raid earlier in the week. According to Simon Show Meliet, the region's Minister of Information, the incident began when armed youths initially raided the area and stole livestock. Security forces managed to repel them temporarily. However, the group returned the next day in larger numbers and launched an attack on the town of Mbomom. Despite efforts by local youth and security forces to defend the town, Malis said they were overpowered by the attackers identified as the Mayom Armed Youth Group. Local media reported that some of the casualties were members of the attacking group. The violence comes amid rising tensions between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and those allied with First Vice President Riek Machar, threatening to destabilize the fragile country. The renewed clashes have sparked concern across the region. Still on the foreign news, French President Emmanuel Macron has called for a suspension of investment in the United States until Donald Trump's brutal and unfounded new tariffs against Europe and the rest of the world are clarified. His comments followed President Trump imposing new levies on U.S. trading partners, including a 20% tariff on imports from the European Union. Macron, in a meeting of French companies also attended by French ministers and prime ministers, Francois Bayrou, predicted Americans will be weaker and poorer after Trump's tariff announcements, which he described as brutal and unfounded, and which would have a massive impact on the European economy. He also called on Europe to stand together in terms of their response, warning against any unilateral action. Macron reaffirmed the French government's position that a European response would come in 2 stages, noting that one would come in mid-April addressing U.S. tariffs already in place on steel and aluminium, while the second one will be at the end of April and will be a more massive response to the tariffs announced. Now to the world of sports, Nigeria has climbed up to one place, moving to 43rd in the world in the latest FIFA rankings released on Thursday. The Super Eagles rounded off 2024 in the 44th position, following unimpressive performances in the international break towards the end of 2024. But a 2-0 victory over Rwanda and in Kigali and a 1-1 draw with Zimbabwe in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers a match gave the 3-time African champions a marginal lift in the latest rankings. Among African teams, Nigeria is ranked 6th behind Morocco, Senegal, Egypt, Ivory Coast, and Algeria. On the world of sports, from the international scene, race car driver Lewis Hamilton has expressed his total confidence in Ferrari after the Italian Formula One team's double disqualification in China. The cars of 7-time world champion Hamilton and teammate Charles failed post-race technical checks at the second round of the season in Shanghai after they finished 6th and 5th, respectively. Charles was disqualified after his car was found to be 1 kg below the 800 kg minimum weight, while Hamilton's had excessive skid wear. Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur suggested a leaking water bottle could have accounted for some of his problem, which had initially been attributed to excessive tire wear from a one-stop strategy. And this is where we wrap it up on the news. But before we leave, a recap of the headlines. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has called on businesses operating in the state to adopt flexible work arrangements as a way to alleviate the intense traffic congestions currently affecting Victoria Island and Ikoyi. French President Emmanuel Macron has called for a suspension of investment in the United States until Donald Trump's brutal and unfounded new tariffs against Europe and the rest of the world are clarified. Nigeria has climbed up to one place, moving to 43rd in the world in the latest FIFA rankings released on Thursday. And that was the TV Sapientia News at 1. On behalf of the technical and editorial crew, I am Oluchi Ojo Bamidele. Thank you for choosing TV Sapientia. Bye for now.